All right, so it looks like someone's getting serious about AWS CloudFormation.
Yeah, you guys sent us a ton of stuff. Cheat sheets, like user guides, even some command line stuff.
So much stuff. Yeah,
Time for a deep dive, I think.
definitely a deep dive.
We need to, like, pull out the good stuff.
The useful nuggets
Yeah, exactly.
for everybody.
The gems.
Okay, so first things first, when we say infrastructure as code,
Oh, that's a good question.
what are we even talking about?
Yeah, I mean, how's that different from just, doing things the old-fashioned way?
I guess it's kind of like, um, think about it this way. Building a house, you could just like start stacking bricks and hope for the best.
Ah.
Or you could, work from blueprints,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So CloudFormation, it's all about defining your infrastructure, servers, databases, networks in code.
Exactly. And that makes it, repeatable,
Hmm.
scalable,
Right.
way less error prone.
So that means no more like, 3 in the morning trying to figure out why my server configuration's all messed up.
Oh, ideally. Yeah, no more of that.
Ideally.
And the cheat sheet actually highlights one way that CloudFormation helps you avoid those situations.
Okay.
Rollback triggers.
Oh, yeah.
Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, so it says that rollback triggers can basically like automatically revert to a previous state, a stable state, if something goes wrong when you're creating a stack.
Right. Right.
So can you like give me a real world scenario where that would actually come in handy?
Okay, so let's say you're launching like a complex database cluster,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the servers like fails during setup.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, without rollback triggers, you could have data loss, hours and hours of trying to manually recover everything. But
Oh.
with rollback triggers, CloudFormation just automatically reverts back to the last known good state.
Oh, wow.
Major headache avoided.
Okay, so that's pretty good. Um, the cheat sheet also talks about something called change sets.
Mm.
And this sounds like a way to like preview changes before you actually like commit to them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a sneak peek into how modifications might impact your stack
Yeah.
before they're actually applied.
So you can see what will be added, modified, or removed.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that's pretty valuable to have that kind of insight.
Absolutely. Can you give me an example of where change sets could have like prevented a big problem?
Okay, so let's say you're updating a stack that includes a critical web server,
Mm-hmm.
and without using change sets, you might accidentally modify a security group setting,
Oh,
unintentionally opening up your server to the public internet.
oops.
Yeah, that would be a disaster, right?
Not good.
But if you had used change sets, you would have seen that change before applying it.
Oh.
And then you could have corrected it, avoided a potential security breach.
That's a good point. Okay, so these features sound like they can really take the stress out of managing infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the cheat sheet has this question about deploying multi-tier web applications.
Right.
And the solution involves something called cross-stack references.
Mhm.
Can you break that down for me? Like, what are those?
So think of it this way. Different parts of your infrastructure need to work together.
Okay.
So cross-stack references are like bridges.
Okay.
They connect separate CloudFormation stacks,
Okay.
allowing them to like share resources.
So instead of like one massive stack, you can break things up into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the cheat sheet specifically mentions using the export output field and the fn.importValue function.
Okay.
What do you think those do?
So export, I'm guessing, is like labeling a resource in one stack so other stacks can find it.
Mm-hmm.
And fn.importValue is how another stack actually like uses that exported resource.
You got it.
I'm
That's
trying-
exactly right. It's a really powerful way to, create these interdependent components
Right.
without tightly coupling your entire infrastructure.
Makes sense. Now, this next question from the cheat sheet feels very like real world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, question 2 talks about a company constantly needing to update AMI IDs in their CloudFormation templates.
You're right.
So I'm assuming that's not something you want to be doing, like manually.
No, definitely not. Manually updating IDs is a pain,
Yeah,
time-consuming, error-prone.
for sure.
The cheat sheet recommends using Systems Manager Parameter Store to store those latest AMI IDs,
Okay.
and then your templates can just, fetch them dynamically.
Okay, that makes sense. But one of the wrong answers suggests using State Manager.
Right.
Why wouldn't that work?
So State Manager is great for, managing the configuration of your systems,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not designed for storing and retrieving dynamic values like AMI IDs.
Okay.
Parameter store, that's like a secure vault for your configuration data.
Mm-hmm.
So it's perfect for this.
Got it. Right tool for the job. The user guide also mentioned something called custom resources.
Right.
And that honestly sounds a little bit intimidating. Is
Yeah.
that something I need to, like, worry about right now?
I'd say custom resources are like a power-up.
Is
You
it?
know, they let you extend CloudFormation's capabilities
Yeah.
beyond those standard AWS resources,
Okay.
but they're definitely more of an advanced topic.
So I should, like, get the basics down first.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
You've got to learn to walk
Yeah.
before you can run, right?
That's okay. So let's dive into those basics then.
Right.
The user guide explains that CloudFormation templates have, like, a specific structure.
Right.
What are the key elements that I need to, like, wrap my head around?
So think of a template like a well-organized document. You know, it starts with format version to like specify the template language.
Right.
Then you've got description, which gives you some context. And there's the resources section. That's where you define all the, the AWS pieces. And there are sections for parameters, mappings, and outputs.
Okay, so that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The user guide shows examples of templates written in, like, both JSON and YAML.
Mm-hmm.
Are those just, like, different ways of saying the same thing?
Essentially, yeah, they're both ways to represent data
Mm-hmm.
in a structured format.
Okay.
It often just comes down to like personal preference or
Right.
tooling support.
Got it. Now I've noticed these things called intrinsic functions, like, scattered throughout these templates.
Yeah, yeah.
What are those?
So intrinsic functions are like built-in helpers
Mm-hmm.
within the CloudFormation template language.
Okay.
They let you do things like calculations, manipulate text, reference other resources, lots of stuff.
Essential.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
They make your templates dynamic and reusable.
Can you give me a real-world example?
Yeah, so let's say you need to create a unique S3 bucket name.
Mm-hmm.
For each deployment,
Okay.
you can use the fn join function to combine a base name with a random string,
Right.
which you can generate using the fn get at function
Okay.
from a CloudFormation resource.
Gotcha. So that ensures each bucket name is unique.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty smart.
Yeah, it helps you follow your naming conventions, too.
Right. I'm starting to see how these intrinsic functions can really, like, level up those CloudFormation templates.
Yeah, there are a ton more to discover,
Mm-hmm.
but that's, a good starting point, I think.
Okay, so we've talked about templates and intrinsic functions,
Hmm.
but what about actually putting them into action?
All right.
Let's say I'm launching a web server that depends on a database.
Right.
Like, it needs to be up and running first.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make sure things happen in the right order?
Okay, so that's where wait conditions and the depends on attribute come in.
Okay.
Wait conditions let you pause the creation process until a certain signal is received.
Mm-hmm.
And depends on explicitly defines the order in which things are created.
Okay, so in this case, I would use depend to make sure the database is fully operational before the web server tries to connect.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
user guide actually uses an example with an RDS DB instance
Mhm.
and an EC2 instance.
Okay.
To illustrate this, it shows how you can link the EC2 instance's creation
Right.
to the successful completion of the RDS instance
Got it.
using that depends on attribute.
That makes perfect sense. Speaking of EC2 instances, the user guide mentions using CFN in it to deploy software to those instances. Can you tell me about that?
So CFN init is like a toolkit.
Okay.
It lets you install packages, configure files, start services, run commands,
Right.
all on your EC2 instances during stack creation.
So it's basically automating the software deployment.
Yeah, exactly. A part of your CloudFormation workflow.
So instead of manually configuring each instance after it's launched,
Right.
I can define all those setup tasks directly in my CloudFormation templates.
You got it.
That's pretty cool.
It's a powerful feature.
Mhm.
Saves you tons of time and effort.
Wow, we've covered a lot already, and it looks like there's still a lot more to explore with CloudFormation.
Oh, there's definitely more.
But at least now I have a good grasp of, like, the fundamental building blocks.
Yeah, you've got a solid foundation
Okay.
for continuing your CloudFormation journey.
Excellent.
That's a great start.
That's what we like to hear.
As we kind of dive deeper into CloudFormation, you'll find that it's not just about defining your infrastructure. It's also about understanding and managing its life cycle.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about creating and updating stacks, but, like, what about understanding what's actually happening during those operations? Behind the scenes.
Have you ever wished you could, go back in time
Oh, all the time.
and see exactly what happened during a CloudFormation operation.
Yeah, especially when things go wrong. It would be amazing to have like a detailed log
Totally.
of every action that was taken.
Oh, especially for troubleshooting.
Right.
You know, you want that sequence of events.
Hmm. Is there a way to do that with CloudFormation?
Yes.
Okay, good.
CloudFormation integrates with CloudTrail,
Okay.
which logs every API call made to CloudFormation.
Okay.
So it gives you this audit trail
Huh.
that can be so helpful.
So it's almost like having a black box recorder for your infrastructure.
That's a great way to put it.
You can literally rewind the tape and see like who made what changes when they were made all the specific API request responses.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's invaluable for understanding that history, you know, how your infrastructure has evolved over time.
Definitely adds a layer of transparency and accountability for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of security, what about controlling access to CloudFormation itself?
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't want just anyone making changes to my AWS environment.
Yeah, good point. Controlling access is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
The user guide talks about using federated identities with CloudFormation.
Right.
Do you know how that works?
From what I understand, federated identities let you kind of integrate CloudFormation with your organization's existing like identity management systems, like LDAP or Active Directory.
Right.
So instead of creating separate users and permissions in CloudFormation,
Right.
you can just leverage your central identity system.
That's a great explanation.
Okay, cool.
This approach really simplifies user management, and it ensures consistent access control policies across your organization.
Right.
You can define roles like administrators with full access or like developers with limited permissions,
Right.
and seamlessly grant access based on those roles.
So that sounds much more streamlined and secure than like managing separate accounts for every user.
Yeah, much more.
Okay, so now let's talk about like actually working with CloudFormation.
Okay.
The user guide walks through using the AWS Management Console.
Right.
Have you ever used that for CloudFormation?
I have. Yeah, the console provides a visual interface. For interacting with CloudFormation, it guides you through creating, updating, deleting stacks, selecting templates, specifying parameters,
Okay.
all that good stuff.
I'm more of a command line person myself.
Oh, okay.
Does the user guide cover using the AWS CLI for CloudFormation?
It does, yeah. You can perform all the same actions you would in the console.
Okay.
Creating, updating, deleting stacks, viewing events, all from the command line.
Okay.
The CLI is really great for automating tasks and, you know, integrating CloudFormation into your existing scripts and workflows.
So no matter how you prefer to work, CloudFormation has you covered.
Exactly.
Now, one thing that stood out to me in the user guide
Yeah.
was the emphasis on using CloudFormation for updating existing stacks.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, updating stacks through CloudFormation offers several advantages over making manual changes.
Okay, like what?
First, it ensures consistency. You modify the template.
Right.
CloudFormation applies those changes systematically across all resources.
Gotcha.
This helps you avoid configuration drift and inconsistencies.
So no more like logging into individual servers and making like ad hoc updates.
Right, which can cause so many problems down the line.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what else?
Second, it provides rollback capabilities.
Ew.
If an update fails, you know, CloudFormation can revert back to the previous stable state.
Oh, okay.
This minimizes downtime and disruption,
Makes sense.
essential for production environments,
Right.
where stability is paramount.
Absolutely.
And third, it simplifies the update process itself. You don't have to track every little change you made manually.
Okay.
Everything is captured in the updated template.
Right.
It provides a clear record of your infrastructure's evolution.
It's all about finding that balance between flexibility and control.
Yes, exactly.
And CloudFormation gives you the tools to do that.
It does.
Okay, now, what if you only want to update specific resources within a stack? Not everything.
Right.
Does CloudFormation allow for selective updates?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
When you modify a template, CloudFormation compares it to the existing stack and only updates the resources that have actually changed.
Yeah, well,
This ensures that unchanged components remain untouched,
that's a relief.
minimizes disruptions, reduces the risk of unintended consequences.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare to have to update an entire stack just to change a minor setting on one resource.
Absolutely. And speaking of minimizing disruptions, the user guide mentions a feature called drift detection.
Rift detection.
Yeah. What do you think that might be about?
Based on the name, I'm guessing it has something to do with like detecting when the actual state of your infrastructure drifts away from the desired state defined in your CloudFormation template.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You're exactly right. Drift detection helps you identify when changes have been made outside of CloudFormation,
Okay.
which can happen if someone manually modifies resources
Mm-hmm.
or another automation tool is at play. This is really crucial for maintaining consistency and ensuring that your infrastructure remains in compliance with your defined templates.
So it's like having a watchdog
Yeah, I like
that
that.
alerts you when something's out of sync.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we move on, let's take a moment to recap what we've covered so far.
All right, so we started by discussing the importance of understanding and managing the life cycle of your CloudFormation stacks.
Mm-hmm.
We explored CloudTrail integration for logging and auditing CloudFormation operations.
Right.
Then we talked about using federated identities for access control
Yeah.
and the different ways to interact with CloudFormation through the console or the CLI.
Right.
And we wrapped up by discussing the advantages of using CloudFormation for updating stacks
Mm-hmm.
and how drift detection helps ensure consistency between your desired state and the actual state of your infrastructure.
That's a great summary. We've really gone beyond the basics in this segment.
Yeah, we have.
Are there any other, like, advanced features or concepts that we should touch upon?
There are a few more things I think you'd find valuable.
Okay.
Like nested stacks and stack sets.
Ah.
Nested stacks allow you to break down complex templates into smaller, more manageable components,
Uh-huh.
while stack sets enable you to deploy the same CloudFormation stack across multiple AWS accounts or regions.
Makes sense.
These features are particularly useful for managing large-scale deployments and enforcing consistency across your organization.
Those sound like powerful tools. I'm definitely intrigued to learn more about them.
And that's exactly what we'll do in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore those advanced features in more detail and see how they can be used to tackle even more complex CloudFormation scenarios.
That sounds like a plan. I'm ready to dive even deeper.
Ah!
Okay, so back to CloudFormation templates. I've
Yeah.
been looking through the user guide, and man, there are so many examples. Some
Yeah.
simple, some pretty complex.
They're a great resource, those examples. They show you how to use CloudFormation for all sorts of things. From launching a single EC2 instance to like deploying complex web applications with
Right.
load balancers, databases, the whole shebang.
Okay, before we, get lost in the complexity here,
Yeah.
can you remind me of the essential parts of a CloudFormation template? Like, what are the must-haves?
Sure. So a template, it's structured like a recipe.
Okay.
You've got the AWS template format version,
Right.
which specifies the template language version.
Mm.
Then comes the description, a brief overview of what the template creates.
Okay.
And then the heart of the template is the resources section.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you list all the AWS resources you want to create.
And I guess, like a recipe, we need to specify amounts and variations.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where parameters come in.
Okay.
They let you customize your template with values that can be provided when you create or update a stack.
So, for instance, you might have a parameter for the instance type of your EC2 instance.
Exactly.
So you can easily choose between different sizes without modifying the template itself.
Yeah. Right. So parameters make the template more flexible
Right.
and reusable.
Makes sense. What about mappings?
Okay.
They seem to be used for associating keys and values. Are they just fancy lookup tables?
You're on the right track. Yeah. Mappings can be used for conditional logic or to simplify your templates.
Okay.
For example, you might have a mapping that associates different AWS regions with their corresponding Amazon machine image IDs,
Oh, okay.
which are also called AMIs.
Right.
This lets you use the same template across multiple regions without hard-coding AMI IDs.
That's super convenient.
It is. It's like having a built-in translation system within the template.
Right. Okay. And then finally, you have outputs,
Right.
which allow you to expose information from your stack, like the URL of a website you just created or the IP address of a server.
Exactly.
So those can be used by other tools or systems that interact with your CloudFormation stacks.
That's right.
So outputs provide a way to access the results of your CloudFormation deployments.
I like that analogy.
It's like the finished dish in our recipe analogy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's revisit those intrinsic functions again.
Okay.
The user guide has a whole section dedicated to them.
It does.
And it seems like there are a ton of them.
There are a lot. Yeah.
So intrinsic functions, they're kind of the secret sauce that makes CloudFormation templates so powerful.
Yeah. They give you a lot of capabilities within the template itself, manipulating text, performing calculations, referencing other resources,
Right.
and a lot more.
So can you give me like some more practical examples of how these functions are used, like in real-world scenarios?
Sure. So we already talked about fn join for combining strings
Mm-hmm.
and ref for retrieving parameter values.
Right.
Another common one is fn getat,
Okay.
which lets you access specific attributes of a resource.
Okay.
So for example, if you need the public IP address of an EC2 instance
Mm-hmm.
or the endpoint of an S3 bucket, you would use fn getat.
Gotcha. So these functions, they kind of make templates more dynamic by letting you reference values and attributes that might not be known until runtime.
Exactly.
Okay.
They add that level of, dynamism and flexibility.
Now, let's say I'm launching a complex application
Okay.
that involves multiple resources with dependencies on each other.
Mm-hmm.
How do I make sure those resources are created and configured in the correct order?
So that's where you would use wait conditions,
Okay.
and the depends on attribute wait conditions let you pause the stack creation process until a specific signal is received,
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that certain conditions are met before moving forward.
Okay.
And depends on lets you explicitly define the order in which resources are created.
Can you give me an example of how these might be used in like a real-world situation?
Sure. So imagine you're deploying a web application that relies on a database.
Mhm.
You would use depends on to ensure that the database is created and initialized
Right.
before the web server is launched. This prevents the web server from trying to connect to the database before it's actually ready.
Makes sense. And what about deploying software to EC2 instances?
Okay.
The user guide mentions CFN init for that.
Right.
What's that all about?
So CFN init is a powerful tool that lets you automate software deployments
Okay.
as part of your CloudFormation stacks.
Hmm.
It provides a structured way to install packages, configure files, start services,
Right.
run commands on your EC2 instances during stack creation.
So instead of manually configuring each instance after it's launched,
Mm-hmm.
I can define all those software setup tasks directly in my CloudFormation templates.
Exactly. CFN init gives you that centralized and repeatable way to manage software deployments,
Mm-hmm.
ensuring consistency across your infrastructure.
This deep dive has been incredible.
That's been fun.
We've covered so much ground, from like the fundamental concepts of infrastructure as code
Mm-hmm.
to the nitty-gritty details of templates, functions, and deployment techniques. I feel like I have a solid understanding now of CloudFormation's power and flexibility.
That's great to hear.
And with that knowledge, I feel equipped to tackle a wide range of infrastructure challenges.
Awesome.
I feel like I've only scratched the surface of what's possible with CloudFormation, though.
You probably have.
There's so much more to explore and learn.
There is.
But this is a great starting point.
For sure.
It is. And remember, the world of infrastructure as code, it extends beyond AWS.
That's true.
So many of these principles and techniques we've learned
Mm-hmm.
with CloudFormation can be applied to other cloud providers and even on-premise systems.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an exciting thought.
It is.
I'm eager to see how I can apply these concepts to other areas of my work.
That's great.
Well, this has been a truly insightful deep dive.
It has been.
Thank you so much for guiding me through the world of CloudFormation.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
And remember, the world of infrastructure as code, it's constantly evolving. So stay curious and keep exploring.
Excellent advice. Thanks again.